who's been a dear friend of the Chamber as long as I've been there, and probably a few years before that. Dawn established her own company called the Indigo Group, and we're just talking about her academic credentials. She has an executive MBA from Suffolk University in beautiful downtown Boston, which includes a concentration in innovation and design management. It's a very interesting background. 25 years of industry experience. Had worked for a spell with the former William Mercer in New York City. The company's been recognized by industry peers and national design awards. Works with both small and large companies, and I know she's working with one of my board members, manufacturing company, on new branding exercise, and getting great reports back from Dawn's clients. So thank you, Dawn, for being here. Next to Dawn is Mark Cannon, Mark Cannon Art Direction and Design. Mark is a Stratford-based graphic designer with over 30 years of experience. He learned his craft by working in small, medium-sized ad agencies, and among some of those national accounts with Kraft Foods, Nabisco, Tropicano, and Subway restaurants and more. And then Tanya Wolf-Truax, who's Director of Public Relations and Customer Experience. Oh, I love that. And customer experience at Newtown Savings Bank. It used to be the bank you keep for life. You're going to hear the new tag today, and I'm not going to tip your hand. But Tanya is a marketing professional with a broad-based experience in marketing, PR, communications, and sales. She's worked in community banking for about 25 years. Joined Newtown Savings Bank as branch manager and transitioned to the marketing field as the bank grew. We just learned she has a marketing MBA from Sacred Heart University, but is still in school. So what are you pursuing now? Another master's degree?
ABA School of Marketing, American Bankers Association.
Okay, American Bankers Association. She's a proud graduate of Leadership Greater Valley, as is Dawn, and she has a paper due at midnight.
So we got to get through this quick.
We're not going to keep it any longer than that. So, Dawn, we're going to turn it to you to open it up.
Great, thank you.
Have a seat.
Good, enjoy. Thank you all for stopping by. I know it's kind of the end of the day, and hopefully that's why there's low attendance and not because people were not interested. We have a little bit of a format, but it's also open to spontaneous questions, so we can have conversation while we're showing some slides. So it could be informal, but there are some slides that we brought along because we thought sometimes you do need some visual for some of the things that we talk about. So it's not going to be a long, drawn-out process of slides. So I assume that most of you here, if not all of you, are familiar with what a brand is or are involved in some sort of branding within your business. Is this true? Maybe. Maybe not. Okay, some people may not be. And generally, the first thing that comes to mind when people think about branding is they think about the visual identity of the company. I have clients, and I know Mark does as well, that come to us and say, we need to increase business. We're having problems with sales. We want to do a new logo. And that is not generally the basis of what the business problem is. It really is more on the functional side of their business. And a lot of the things that become some of the issues are the things that I've listed here. So it's really more about who you are as a company. What are people saying about your company? This is who your brand is. Your brand is all about your customer service. It's about the people that interact with your clients and customers. These are the important touch points of your brand. Certainly your visual identity is very important, but it's more than just that. There are some must-have ingredients in your brand process. This was a study that was done by a company named Salt, and these are the 12 top areas that are of importance in a company when it comes to branding. And it's not necessarily specific to B2B or B2C because a lot of these have crossover. Some of them do become specific if you have an actual product, multiple product lines, that there are other things that you need to pay attention to. but the 3 top areas of your brand, why people choose to do business with you or choose to not do business with you, are quality, value, and customer service. Basic business, right? So it's not really that complicated. When people think about branding, sometimes they feel a little overwhelmed. They're not really sure what that means, and they do start thinking along the lines of their visual identity, and that's a lot of why we get pulled into the process. But we do have to start asking questions of our clients, as you should ask of yourselves. What is the bigger issue here? Do we have a good quality product? Is it of value? Do we have customer service that is quality? When someone calls into your business and the first person that answers the phone is not a friendly voice or is not helpful, that is speaking to your brand, the big brand of who the company is, not speaking a lot about the product itself. We have the advantage of having Tanya here from Newtown Savings Bank, who's actually going through a branding process right now with her business. So she gets to speak to you from the customer side, from the client side, as to some of the discoveries that they've made through the process. Things that Mark and I would generally pull from our clients to try to find out where, what the hot spots are that we need to help them with before we get to creating a new identity system, creating a new logo. Mark, do you want to elaborate on some of that?
Well, basically, your brand is what people know about you, is what they understand about you. And oftentimes when I am called by a client that wants me to come in and help them, the problem is that they may not even have much of a reputation because their competitors' marketing materials, their trifolds, their websites, their any kind of materials they have out there may be overshadowing them because a lot of these materials may be being created in-house, which is the thing that I think a business should do in the beginning. Marketing costs money, and if you can successfully produce it in-house, then that's the place to start. But people who are running a business need to be able to focus on their business and run their business. And sometimes they are very expert in what their business does, but in terms of marketing, they don't have a background in it, and it's not very successful. So that because their competitors are overshadowing them in their marketing materials, they're just not getting known, so that they don't have much of a brand because people don't know about them at all, or very little. And if they had a chance to get a reputation out there, then they could start to build a brand, because as Dawn said, your brand is your reputation. It's what people know about you. And I just want to distinguish between brand and brand mark, because a brand is what, if you are a small store and your customers come and they buy groceries from you, if they buy software from you, if they buy office supplies from you, what those customers say to their neighbors, what they say to their coworkers about whether they should go and buy from your business, that is part of your brand. And whereas a brand mark, which is a logo, it might be all of your marketing materials, is really more of a symbol where if people have gotten to know you and they have developed a certain amount of trust in you, they can put that trust into those marketing materials, the logo, the trifolds, the website, whatever. But anything to...
Well, actually, as you were speaking, I was thinking about the consistency. I know it's not as high on there, but for me, I always notice that about other companies where, if they are using different fonts and different looks on different materials, or their website's not professional, that, that consistency is always immediately a sign that, someone's maybe kind of an amateurish, not focused on marketing kind of thing. So that was just an observation that I personally feel when, it's just like that first impression kind of thing, is you just know that they're not up on their marketing, just from the basics of finding their font, their colors, their so forth. But I'm actually here to represent, the businesses that engage agencies for assistance, and we are going through a rebranding right now. It kind of started not by accident, but we weren't planning for it to be quite as an extensive thing when it happened. Back in 2012, early on, our strategic planning brought out that that we wanted to have a competitive initiative that we would differentiation that we would focus on the customer experience, which is kind of a buzzword. It's been a buzzword for the larger companies, but small community banks have not typically focused, and we wanted that to be our competitive edge, is to provide the best customer experience and have it be a long-term strategy. That being said, our tagline, we had a new ad agency, and they did some employee interviews and some customer interviews, and it came up that our tagline, which was "The Bank You Keep for Life," and a lot of people knew that tagline, but was considered to be by some stodgy, spoke to an older generation, maybe didn't speak to business as well as it could, and so that led to a whole look at the tagline, and the two initiatives combined, we ended up coming up with our new tagline after many rounds.
Is this where you want the drum roll?
Sure. Anybody know what it is? We launched
The tagline is?
We launched it in March, but we haven't really done the rebranding campaign, which is coming next year. But it's "The Experience Matters." So Anytime Savings Bank, the experience matters. So many things have got.
It's been taken care of. Oh, you're bringing more ice? I'm sorry, I thought you were cleaning up.
Are you here for the marketing?
No.
No, it's here.
He's here for ice.
Continue.
Oh, that's it. So we've gone through many steps since then, which I'd love to share with you. I don't know if you want to go to another area first, and
You want to share steps of?
that we've taken, through this process.
Yeah,
now.
go ahead. Please.
So
It's a case study.
yeah, pretty much. So we after many rounds, we came up with our new tagline, and had a lot of refinements before we finally settled on that. A lot of different opinions. Then we redesigned our logo, and then we went through this whole process where we had to identify every piece of marketing and any piece that had a brand on it, anywhere in the market, on nonprofit sites, our ATM cards, deposit slips, you name it. I mean, a lot of people were actually upset that we were discarding all of these materials that had "The Bank You Keep for Life," and it was a decision that we really had to go full force into the new look, and had to kind of be the logo police for a while. It was an extensive process, and we still had something pop up today on Zillow, things that you don't even think of, like to try to get your logo changed is a major thing. And then starting we're going to start shooting some television and do a branding campaign in the first quarter of next year with all new stuff. So we're pretty excited with that.
So you're still "The Bank You Keep Your Life for Life," but you just got rid of the stationery.
Correct. We still want you to stay for life.
So you're going to roll it out first quarter.
Yes.
Okay.
Was it only your tagline? Did you change the identity of the logo itself? Did you change anything in addition to that?
We changed our logo. In fact, we have some slides on our new brand logo standards, and so there's definitely way more to it. We changed my job title, customer experience, director of customer experience, and we actually created a customer experience department that actually marketing department is within. So we have a CXO of the bank, which is my boss, and so this is a long-term initiative, and we were just kind of getting ready for it.
All right, so you're going much deeper than the tech.
Absolutely. Yep.
Great. Thanks, Tanya, because that's actually a good lead-in to a lot of the other things that we'll be talking about, of course. So how can you evaluate and define your brands? So as your own business, who may be, excuse me, I'm developing this as we speak. I'm sorry about this. As luck would have it, prior to having a room full of people that I have to speak to, I'm starting to have a sinus throat thing happen to me. So if you did not have the ability to hire someone on to help you with your branding, what are some of the things that you can do as a small business, as a medium-sized business, whatever size business you are, maybe a large business that wants to take on some of these initiatives themselves? Some of the things that you can do are some of the things that Tanya was just talking about, excuse me, that I and many other people call a brand audit. And there are a lot of steps to a brand audit. But these are some of I think some of the simpler steps that you can take as a business to try to evaluate your brand and whether or not your brand is working for you, or if you are working for your brand in the appropriate way. So as I mentioned earlier, it's very important for you to understand how your customers and even your employees view your brand, because remember that your employees are advocates or should be advocates for your business. So if they're not happy, they are promoting a bad brand for your business. You need to think about what compels someone to buy or use your products and services. Some people make the assumption that they have a good product because people are buying it, but they don't really know why someone is choosing your product over someone else's product or service. As Mark had mentioned earlier, is there brand awareness? Do people even know that you exist? Are they just stumbling upon you? Maybe you get businesses through referrals, which is a great thing, but you also want people to know that you're out there for those potential customers that may not know someone who yet knows you, that could give you as a referral. So you want to make sure that there's still brand awareness about you and your services. And as Tanya was talking about, and this is really a lot of what Mark and I do, is consistency. Making sure that there's consistency with your communications, with your marketing, with your collateral. So it's everything that you're saying to your customers, potential customers, the content that's on your website, your social media, for those of you who were in the talk earlier. All of that is very important. And then what does everything look like? So a brand audit for you, a very basic thing that you can do, take everything that you hand to somebody, whether it's your business card, your sales sheets, your brochures, anything that you are presenting to somebody, spread it out on a table and look for inconsistencies. Does it have the same tagline? Is it similar messaging, same messaging? Is the logo consistent across the board? Are the colors consistent? These are things that you can do on your own if you do not have the ability to hire someone to help you do that. These are things that you or somebody in your company should be paying attention to. Not everybody has the real eye for those kinds of details, and I know I do. I'm sure Mark does. Tanya already spoke about, she's very into the detail. She's looking, when she's shopping, she's looking for, are the fonts consistent? Things that a lot of companies don't even consider that someone is paying attention to. Says a lot about your business. Are the colors consistent? Are the logos being deformed as someone's resizing them? Are they skinnier and taller? And colors have changed because you've had them in so many different hands that no one has paid attention to them. Mark?
Just to further what Dawn was saying, there are some very simple ways you can do a brand audit. This is somewhat outside of my expertise being a graphic designer, but if you are the type of business that engages with customers and they really like or otherwise don't like their experience with you, there are websites like Yelp where they can leave a review. And this is a really easy way where you can go out and actually audit what kind of experience customers are getting from your business. One of my wife and my guilty pleasures on TV is a Food Network show called Restaurant Stakeout. The host, a guy named Willie Deagle, who is a successful restaurant owner, has owners of failing restaurants come to him because they don't know what's going on in their restaurant, so that he puts up all kinds of surveillance equipment in their restaurant, and then he and the owner will just review what goes on in the restaurant when they're not there. But the very first thing he does before they look at any of the footage is he looks at the Yelp reviews just to see what's going on. And oftentimes they find out maybe the food isn't up to what it is, maybe the service isn't good. But these are things that the owners, before they even came to him, if they had actually looked at these reviews, they could have performed their own audit of what's going on. Beyond that, in terms of your message, just as Dawn was saying, just having a consistent message, whether you are handing out a trifold brochure or if you have one in one of those lucite stands and people pick up and read. If there's a website on that trifold brochure and they go to the website, are they getting the same information on the website? Are they getting expanded information on the website? Is the website is the website easy to navigate? Does it give them the information that they want? In terms of signage in your store, is it a good experience for them? Any kind of experiences like that are what your customer is going to perceive about your business. This is just printed material beyond the type of experience that you are giving your customer, but that is part of your branding. Just whatever it is you do, if you can explain it well and sell it to a customer, they're developing good material that is easy to peruse and understand is key to being able to build a brand that people can recognize and then refer their customers to. That's Tanya, I'm sorry.
That's okay. A couple things that came to mind when these guys were talking. One is that no matter what the size of your business, there should be the one person or one area that all marketing and reviews of materials goes through, so it's not, being handled by a bunch of different people and lacking that consistency. The other thing is, even if you don't realize that you don't have that attention to detail and that awareness, you still are getting a perception. You don't realize why of the business. So if there's a mishmash of styles and just your brain registers that it's not organized, and you may not know why, but you get a sense for the business that maybe you didn't realize why you got it.
I find that a lot of my customers, clients, are surprised at their own inconsistencies because they're not looking at all of their pieces across the board like we do when we actually come in and do a brand audit for them and show them, and I come back to them and show them where the inconsistencies are. That there may be pieces that they're using an old tagline or an old logo, and this goes outside of your business as well. Tanya and I were talking a few days ago about there's an event coming up, and they are using an old logo for her. She's a sponsor for this event. So your sponsorship, you want to make sure that people understand who you are, and you're already using your new logo. You want to make sure that even the businesses outside of yours that you work with have this updated material as well. So I'll just keep moving on. So we've structured this to try to, and me being a teacher part-time as well, as I'm always looking to make sure that people get educated and that you're not just coming here listening to a bunch of fluff. So I wanted to be sure that hopefully you're able to leave here with something. So aside from listening to some of this, we wanted to make sure that we can help you think about some things to help build your brand. So as I had mentioned earlier, aside from the things that we were just talking about, that it has a lot to do with your visual perception of who the company is. It also has a lot to do with what's going on internally with your company. So you can start by building a happier environment for your own employees. Remember, they're advocates for your company, as well as anyone else that interacts with you. Your vendors become advocates for your company. I'm sure that many of you may receive referrals from your vendors. I know that I do. I would assume that Mark has, that the people that we work with that provide services to us value what we do in turn and give us business as well. And they're promoting us to other people. So those are important people as well. So don't forget about the people outside of your business. Remember to work on defining your brand message. So vision, mission, value statements, people toss them around all of the time, but they're important because they help you follow the talk that you're talking. So you have this guideline for yourself, for your employees, to make sure that there is that consistency. What is your brand personality? Are you a fun company that people show up and everyone's skateboarding around the office? Or are you a business, maybe you're a banker or an insurance company and more corporate. So you figure out what your personality is for your business, and this is part of your branding. This is the perception that you are putting out to people, and you want them to understand that. Your tagline, Tanya talked about working very hard on a new tagline. There are always going to be people that are stuck on the old way of doing things. Your clients love the old way. They don't want to change that, but they'll get used to the new way. They will. And then brand management. Make sure that there is consistency and someone is paying attention to that. You have to make sure that there is somebody in the company, and I have that in a slide or two later, that I call, and I know a lot of people call, and I know Tanya's familiar with it now, is the brand police, or the logo patrol, or whatever you want to call it. But there has to be some place that all of this information feeds and funnels into to make sure that someone is watching this brand overall, and that they're paying attention to it. So there are a ton of things that you can do to build your brand. These are just a few.
I think a really good way to think about your brand is think of your brand as your story. Because oftentimes when I am talking to a new client and they are struggling to find a way to, especially if this is a company in a very crowded field, how are they're just unable to tell their story so that they can distinguish themselves from their other competitors. And very often, what I will do is I will bring in people who are writers, they are public relations people who can actually we can all sit down together and talk and figure out what it is about my client that makes them unique. What is the sector of their business that makes them special? And so that becomes your story. And so when I proceed from there, when I develop any kind of brochure, a website, any kind of materials, that is the story that I try and tell in there so that they now have something that is concrete, so that when the business owner and any of the employees speak to somebody, just at a party, at a networking event like we're going to have later, and said, "What do you do?" These materials actually help them define their business. This is our story. Let me tell you the story of our business. And so if you think of your brand as a story, I think it becomes a lot easier to define yourself. And once you can define yourself, then you can start to think, when you're talking to somebody like Dawn or myself, and we have to develop a logo, or we have to develop any kind of other materials, a website, brochures, any kind of printed material, if we know your story, and if we've been able to define it, it becomes a lot easier for us, and it makes you look better.
Just a couple comments. One, when we, Newtown Savings, changed to the experience matters as our tagline, one of the things that we liked about it was something that our employees could get behind as well, and that we felt that it translated well to them instead of our old tagline. And we could have internal campaigns and internal motivational, trying to raise our employee engagement. So I think that it's already shown that people are proud of using that as a tagline and can get behind it better. I don't know if we want to take questions. Is this over at
a few more slides you want to move in?
Just a few quick ones. I mean, if anyone's got questions at this point, they're free to ask.
Yeah.
Questions at this point? There's a couple.
Yeah. For the tagline, is there a guideline into the number of words that it should be, or like recommended your tagline should be 3 to 4 words, 4 to 6 words, or?
If it can fit on a bumper sticker, it's perfect.
Mind you, with your password, must have 3 capital letters, a couple of,
That's right.
article.
It's got to be easy to remember.
Yeah. So in the earlier slide, when it said make sure that it's sticky, you want to make sure that people remember it, that it does have some sticking power. So it should be short. I don't know if when you were going through this process, were there guidelines that they were following for taglines?
I mean, they were all short. We explored a lot of different things. I would say that it was more about emotion than anything else.
How does it
How to
feel?
make you feel, yeah.
One other way to gauge the right length of a slogan or a tagline, think of a billboard on 95, because you drive past those at 60 miles an hour, or 65 if there's no cops around.
That's at 3 in the morning though, not on 95.
So that if you can look up at that billboard and read that tagline and internalize it after you've gone by, you've found the perfect length of a tagline.
Lakeisha?
I think I have 2 questions. If you have like this small business, tiny, just coming in, you're trying to get all your materials together, but then you have one mismatch, and I understand with the consistency what you're saving towards the goal, to have everything aligned. What type of advice would you give that person or in that situation that they have 90% of their marketing materials is aligned, but then the other 5% needs
What I would do is I would try and use the same thinking that you use for the other 90%, because clearly when you made that one that sticks out, your thinking was different, or somebody else was involved.
Yeah.
So that you want to make sure that whoever was doing the 90% that works gets involved in that one that doesn't.
And my other question is, and I agree with you about having a slogan that sticks, that you're driving around with. Because when I decided to choose mine, I have to also think about the business you're in. Am I right or wrong? That's how I was thinking. I have to, try to have something that stick for the business that you're in. So the other question that I actually have is, how do you set up appointments with you guys for you guys to basically come out to a business that is just need some type of guidance, and maybe we could talk about different
We
things
both
that you
have
do.
our phone number and our
You
email.
have our business card probably right in front of you. Yeah, just call. I know that I'm free to have conversations with people all the time. I'm happy to talk on the phone. It doesn't always have to be something that you're having a formal meeting for. And then, things could happen from there, depending on whatever it is that you're looking to do. It's not hard to get in touch with anyone if you're interested. Okay. I know that we're starting to run low on time. We started a little late, so just a few quick things about brand management. So with just like with any other business initiative, and I see a lot of things fail because there's not buy-in at the top. There might have been buy-in at the top from the beginning, but the people in charge, the owners of the businesses, the senior management of your company really needs to be on board with what you're doing, because they're the ones that everyone is looking at for the guidance to go forward. So if they're not following the lead, or if they follow the lead for a little while and then they're going off course, then the rest of the company says, well, why am I going to bother if Joe Smith, who runs this company, it's his business, if he doesn't care, I'm not going to care. So it really is important that the people at the top are involved and stay involved. We spoke about the brand police. So identify who those people are. It could be a department, it could be one person. Doesn't have to be the owner of the company. If you're a very small business, if you're a business of one or two, find somebody that has that very detail-oriented eye that will look at every little thing for you. And it's always good to present your stuff to other people who are not seeing it all day long and used to, you get kind of, you start to not see things of your own materials when you're looking at it all the time. And then when someone else shows you the mistake, you go, how could I have not seen that? It's been right in front of my face all the time, because you're just glazing over some of those things. And then develop a brand style guide. Now, it doesn't have to be a big, elaborate book. I've worked with small businesses where it becomes one sheet. It's very simple, that everybody in the company has a guide that says, this is the logo you use. It could have file names on it, Pantone colors. Some of you might be familiar with that term or not. But essentially it's telling everybody what ink to use for that logo, what fonts to use, how it's positioned. There might be two versions of the logo, that you use one in a vertical format, one in a horizontal format. And we actually have samples that Tanya was kind enough to allow us to peek at, and I'm going to jump to those so that we can talk a little bit about, this is what these are pages, 3 pages we pulled from their style guide. Now, they're a pretty big company compared to maybe some others that might be sitting here. So again, you don't necessarily have to have this big book, but you would have pieces of this. And I know Mark wants to talk to some of this as well.
Well, you can see that there are rows here. There is the yes row at the top, the no row at the bottom, so that this comes down to just usage of the corporate identity. Now, at Newtown Savings Bank, there is a department that is very likely dealing with managing this, so that all the branch managers know how to use this logo, how not to use the logo. Oftentimes I am dealing with much smaller businesses, and I can tell you, if you are not used to dealing with image files, there are at least 3 major image file formats that are used for the web. There are another 5 that are used for print. And then within there you have at least 3 different what's known as color spaces. There is RGB, which is primarily for the web, because red, blue, green is how your monitor mixes color. There is CMYK, which correspond to the 4 colors on any modern printing press, which is basically how modern printing is done. So you have to have the right color space for that. There is also Pantone, which is a very specific color system in which the colors are custom mixed to a particular color, so that this is overwhelming for most people who do not have a background in this. So that what I always do, like what Dawn was saying, I don't do a whole style guide like this, but I will always give my my clients a basic usage guide. And I'd say, and I explain in very plain language how to use each of these image formats, which ones to give a printer, which ones to give their web designer. And if it's going to be, if they're asked for Pantone or CMYK, I make sure that all of these are labeled. They're in folders that are labeled. They can give these, any of ones from this folder to their printer, any of the ones from this folder to their web designer. And if somebody asks them for Pantone, I have that in a folder that's labeled Pantone, so that if the person at my client who is tasked with managing the logo assets, the brand assets, reads through my guide, then they will understand, and with practice, they'll be able to figure out easily how to manage these brand assets. So when a printer asks them for the files, when a web designer asks them for files, they'll know which ones to give them, so that it becomes less overwhelming.
I have no more comments.
Okay.
Taking questions.
Oh, yes.
Can I make one observation on corporate identity, on taglines? I face this in my industry, and I'm seeing it right here, and I think it's something that's important to a company when they're developing what their logo and taglines would be. And it's interesting. Newtown Savings Bank. The name of the company defines what the company does. So the tagline can then be a descriptive tagline, as you guys have done. It can be an emotional tagline. It doesn't have to be a defining tagline. But then if you look at the Indigo Group is a generic name. So your tagline is different. So the Indigo Group's tagline is longer, more descriptive. Business solutions inspired by creative strategy. So you've got business solutions, creative strategy, and inspiration all together in the tagline. So that tagline describes what the Indigo Group is, whereas Newtown Savings Bank doesn't have to say, we're a bank, we do specialize in this. They can go to different areas. I face this all the time, and I think it's key. And what I notice is if you look at most trade shows, and you look at a trade show display, the companies don't get that. They might have Indigo Group with no defining tagline, and that's what you see. That's the only thing you see.
It's not so much a defining tagline. I think a good guideline for a tagline is that once you've stated who you are and what you do, the tagline should speak to your the benefit you give your customers. That's basically, when you're coming up with a tagline, think about the customer. What do they get?
In Dan's case, it's all things basement tea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm struck by, we were having this conversation earlier about sort of the key man or key woman branding strategy. Think of those companies, Larry Ginesky with basement systems, Dave DeGiorgi Roofing, Bob's Discount. Tell us about that, where you reach a scale where the personality behind the company becomes the brand.
You know, I remember Tom Carvel. You know, Carvel's Ice Cream, and he was always entertaining to watch, and he made his brand memorable. So that if you are somebody who can just by your very presence make people remember your brand, then there's Frank Perdue, all of those people. Then that, yeah.
But even on a local scale, we're seeing more of it.
Yeah.
My observation,
Yep.
seeing more of that.
I think it may become sometimes more of a challenge to manage that brand when the brand becomes a person, because they always have to be aware that they are the brand for their company. So they're never off. They're always on.
Sure.
Wherever they are, people know who they are. you know, they know who the basement system guy, they know who Bob is, they see their faces on TV all the time. So you can't have the president of the company who is the brand. I mean, you wouldn't want this anyway, to happen whether he's the face of the company or not. He is the face of the company, essentially. You don't want him running around doing crazy stuff, and we were talking about twerking earlier in the social media session. You don't want to find that person out at a bar who's doing stuff like that, because that's affecting your brand. I think it becomes,
Hanging out with him.
that's right.
Actually,
It becomes difficult, yeah.
one good example of, I'm using national brands because they're recognizable to everybody, but one good example of what Bill was saying, where the owner's presence lived beyond his lifetime, is KFC. The Colonel is still the symbol of KFC, so that, you know, he was the brand, and he still is. He's been gone for many years, but they successfully managed to keep his presence tied to that brand.
And we know he can't hurt the brand
No,
anymore.
yeah.
He can't do any damage.
Right, he's not at the bar. And speaking
That's
of the bar is now open. It's not 5 o'clock.